Great, we'll make a start. Thank you for taking the time to come to this workshop, for choosing us. My name is Toby Hole. If you've not encountered me before, I work with the bishops. My title is Director of Mission and Ministry, which covers a whole variety of different things, but one of them is mission action planning. So my team and I are behind the document that you have and are there to help churches as you think about how we plan. It's a talk in two halves. So the first part is me talking a little bit about why we mission action plan and how we can make the best of this document. And I'm really delighted that Marie from Wentworth, who has seen this process through and is working it with her church, can then come and give something of a case study of what it looks like in practice and why it's so fruitful. And we anticipate that there will be time at the end of our two talks for a more open discussion about how you're finding mission action planning, whether you've done it before or not, and how that's working for you. So I hope that's what you're expecting. Could you have the first slide, please? I didn't make a note on my talk about which slides I have, so it might be a bit random as to what things appear, but we'll do our best. Mission action planning has been in the air for the church nationally for quite some time. I did my curacy in London, and that was in the noughties. And by that stage, London had been doing mission action planning for about 10 years or so. So I did it as part of my curacy training. And then when I came to Sheffield in 2010, I introduced it to our church in Woodseats. I think we were at the time the first Sheffield church to do a mission action plan. That was then shortly taken up by the bishop at the time, Stephen Croft. And we are now, I think, on our fifth mission action plan cycle. So it is well embedded in the church now, and so I hope that it's something that is at least on your radar if you haven't actually engaged with it yourself before. Some people say, well, why does the church need to plan anything? After all, as Mark's just told us, the church has been around in the north of England for 1400 years, and some might say we've never done any planning in 1400 years. Why do we need to start now? I always think a church has never done any planning. You can tell the church has never done any planning. In actual fact, churches have been planning. It's just that often we don't talk about it. So, for instance, think of anything that you might do in church life. Might be your Christmas services. Could be a summer fair you put on. A monthly all-age service that you've started to introduce. All these things take a certain degree of planning. I have not yet come across a church where on the morning of the 24th of December, the church warden the vicar calls the church wardens together and says, so what are we going to do over the next 24 hours? Christmas services, in my experience, get planned quite early because there's so many things that need to do. The most basic events in church life require a certain degree of planning, some leadership, a small team of volunteers, often a little bit of financial investment. And all these things need to be organised, and something that needs to be organised needs to be planned. So all churches plan, even if we don't necessarily think that we do. And we usually have a reason behind doing what we do. So unless you are sleepwalking through church life, you will have a motive for the things that you put on, the events that you do, the courses that you run, the people that you see. Now, it might not be that you think much about your motive. Perhaps you've been doing these things for years and you've forgotten why you do it, but there will always have been a motive behind it. Motives might include a desire to connect with your community, to fundraise for your leaky church roof, to bring people into church, or even, dare I say, to demonstrate God's love in Jesus Christ. And because we have reasons behind what we do, that means we will feel more or less strongly about some of the activities that we undertake. So we form priorities around what we do. If we feel strongly that we need more children to engage in the life of our church, then we are going to put more energy, passion and planning into ensuring that our all-age worship service is good, or that we have children groups running, or that perhaps we put on a summer holiday Bible club. And we may put more passion into that than, for the sake of argument, putting much passion into fundraising for the leaky roof. And because there are things in church life that we feel more strongly about than others, and there are always going to be differences in the congregation about where we think these passions lie, then we have to prioritise what it is that we do. Because there will be competition for the resources, financial, time and people. Unless you happen to be in a church that is so vast and so well resourced that you can almost do anything that you ever want to do, you will find that there will be competition for certain priorities. So, for instance, if your church wants to start a drop-in coffee morning for the elderly and the vulnerable, you have to think, well, where are we going to host it? What is the space that we're going to use? What time in the week are we going to have it? What volunteers do we need to run it? And is there a financial contribution that we are going to ask the PCC to make? And all those decisions will then impinge on other areas of church life, and it involves negotiation. So, for instance, if you are wanting to have your vulnerable drop-in coffee morning on a Wednesday morning, because you happen to think that that is the time that best suits the people who are going to come along, but you also have a toddler group that is using the church at that time, you're going to have to decide which of those moves or whether you use a different space. Perhaps your key volunteers that you are hoping will involve themselves in the drop-in are already involved in other key areas of church life or community life. Will you be asking them to drop something in order to take part in this? And assuming that your PCC has limited funds, the PCC will have to make a decision as to what projects to support financially and what projects can't be supported financially. And the PCC will have to have a decision about this. So if you bring to your PCC the vision that you want to have this drop-in coffee morning, there will need to be a discussion about all those things. And this discussion will be a lot easier if the PCC have already clarified their vision and their purposes. If the PCC's vision includes reaching out to the elderly and the vulnerable, then the proposal will be far more easily accepted than if it's never been on the agenda before now. If the PCC has never agreed any priorities for church life, then the PCC then is in danger of either agreeing to every proposal that comes its way or none of them at all. So planning happens at every level. And if planning doesn't happen, then things tend to go awry. And this basic planning happens at every PCC meeting that you have, whether you name it or not. But there are many pressures on a church's life. They will include big things like building works, community engagement, raising up lay leaders, children's, youth and family provision, environmental eco-church priorities, mission and evangelism, Sunday services and worship. And a church has to try and work out where each of your priorities lie in those big things. And as well as those, there may be immediate concerns such as when the roof starts to leak, or when you suddenly realise you don't have enough volunteers to run your children's Sunday groups. So how does a church adjudicate on all these competing demands for its attention? And this is where our mission action planning tool is there to help you. Next slide, please. The MAP tool is there to help churches sort out their priorities and work out what needs to be done, how it is to be done, realistically when it is to be done by, and who is responsible for doing it. It is not a means for the diocese to check up on churches to make sure that you're all doing what we're asking you to do. It may come centrally from my team, but I can genuinely tell you we send it to you because we believe it is a resource that can help you in your churches rather than it simply being another case of diocesan stats collecting. Can't say that strongly enough. The reason why we want to see every church engaging in mission action planning is because we really believe that if you do mapping seriously, you will get more done and you will have more congregational buy-in. Ultimately, more people to serve and to lead and to spread the load. So can I have the next slide, please? So how to make the best of your MAP process. So the first thing you need to ask, I think, is who is going to be involved in working this out with you? It should never just be the vicar. Just every now and then we get a map sent through to us where you look at it and you do wonder whether the vicar sat down after his breakfast and just went through a load of boxes and ticking it. The MAP process needs to be something that involves, to a certain degree, some or many of your church. So you might want to think, is this going to be a specific church subcommittee? The first mission action plan that I did when I was at St Chad's, I spotted people in the congregation who I thought covered pretty much all our bases in terms of community and church life. I called them together and we began working on a mission action plan together because I thought that they probably had the fingers in the right kind of pies. So you might want to get a bespoke mission action planning team. You might want to involve the whole of the PCC depending on your size of the PCC and how effective your PCC runs. PCCs have the big advantage in that you already have meetings set up in your diaries, so you don't need to call separate ones. You could actually say, well, we're going to spend 3 PCCs, perhaps half an hour each time, going through this. Or you may want to possibly use a PCC subcommittee or a PCC away day in order to do this. And the PCC are obviously, in some respects, the elders and the leaders of the church. They're the people you would expect to have a stake in this. Or it may even be a wider group. You may think this is something actually that we would like the whole of the congregation to be involved with, not in one big meeting because that would be quite difficult to manage, but maybe we need to put out some kind of questionnaires, some things to help people name the priorities that are on their heart. But think who is going to be involved in working with MAP. Second thing is, when are you going to do this? Do you want a specific morning or a day away to think about your vision and your mission and your priorities before completing the mission action plan? Is this something that you might want to do piecemeal over a number of months? And who might you ask to facilitate it? And your associate archdeacon or members of my team are always very happy to come along and help churches think some of these things through, particularly if a church has never done anything like this before. And then look at the Mission Action Plan booklet itself. What's the next slide? Yeah, here we are. You can't see that very well, but it's okay if you've got a sight of one of these, because you can look at it on there, and hopefully you have seen this before. So the Mission Action Plan booklet, which has been wonderfully produced by our comms team, it has 10 sections divided into a series of themes with mini stories. So, for instance, I've just turned to section 1 here, Vision, Purpose and Oversight Ministry. This is looking at the top level of your leadership and your vision in the church. And within this section, looking down, there are themes. So there's one theme is on mission action planning, one is on lay and ordained leadership development, another is leading and modelling a healthy culture of ministry, and another is on mission area formation. 5 themes going down there. And back in the old days, the earlier iteration of mission action planning, we would simply ask you to put a 5 or a 6 out of 10, depending on how you thought you were doing. But that's quite subjective and not very helpful. So what we've done is we have then, going across horizontally, have something of a little story in which you can tell how we are doing on these things. So on lay and ordained leadership development, stage 1, our lay and ordained leaders are unsupported and not receiving any training. All the way through to stage 4, everyone in our church is in a supportive learning relationship, and bits in between. So as you gather with your little group and you go through these things, where are we on this? In our story of where we are with developing our leaders, do you think we're at stage 1, 2, 3 or 4? And you can go through that with all 10 of the sections and themes. And you think, well, what is going well and what needs to be changed? And it's really important to be honest about this. I can again, hand on heart, say that no mission action plans turn up to my team. We look at them and think, oh, they put ones all over the place. They're terrible. Well, let the bishop know about that. Make sure they don't get any favours. No, it's the opposite. We want you to be honest and say, actually our welcome's not great when we think about it. We've had feedback from our congregation. Some of them don't feel that we welcome the strange very well. What can we do to get a bit better? Be honest. It's not about criticism. It's about good self-reflection. Next slide, please. Then, when you've been through all that, decide your priorities. So you may look at it and feel overwhelmed. Oh my goodness, we really need to invest in our buildings and children's, youth and families work. We'd love to see more children on a Sunday. And wouldn't it be great to have a focal minister or 2? You can't do them all at once, so pick 3. And use that discernment in your little group and with the PCC or the wider congregation to say, what are the 3 things that God is really putting on our heart? Is it really, is for us, is the key priority to build our youth and families work up? Well, maybe it is. We agree on that. So let's put that as a priority. It's a real priority that we just make our building a little bit more welcoming and fit. So we'll put that down. And it's our priority to just make sure that discipleship is embedded more in the church so that people in our congregation are reading scripture and praying more regularly. You put those 3 down. And they don't have to be the most awful ones. Some of the ones may be so big you think this just needs more thought to it. You may even want to do quick wins. You may think, actually, no, I think we could do some really simple things to make our church more welcoming to children. And that's our priority, because next time we look at the Mission Action Plan in 2 years' time, that will have been done. It's fantastic. So be realistic. Don't set impossible targets. Choose priorities that you really think God is putting on your heart and has the buy-in of your PCC. Next slide, please. Write them down on the action pages, right at the back. There are 3 development priorities. Describe the current situation. Describe where you want to be. Again, be realistic. No point in putting, we want to have 100 young people in our church by next year, if that's not going to happen. But maybe you want to have 10. What action is going to be taken? Who is going to do it? When is a realistic time to do it? Again, not set in stone, but helpful way of things to do. And when you've done that, submit it on the online form. Next slide, please. The online form is easy to use. The thing I have to say is that for some reason or another, which is technical reasons way beyond my comprehension, you can't save it when you type it in, which is why it's really important for you to use this and write it down, because if you lose it, you've got something to fall back on. So next slide, please. You can go to the Mission Action Plan pages on the website. There is a form to submit there. You type in the things that you do. That then comes to me, and we look at the priorities that you've put down and think, right, children's, youth and families they've put down, I will let Mike North know and he will get in touch. Or if it's about lay leadership, I'll let Beth Barras know and she will get in touch. And we will then be in touch with you to say, that's fantastic you've put that down. Is there any way we can help, any resources that we can offer? Next slide, please. Follow it up with your PCC. I think many churches, and I'd put my hand up with this, do really well up to the submits, and then you don't let the congregation know enough about it. It becomes just part of what PCC do. Find ways in which you can communicate to your congregation. These are the 3 priorities that we, as St. whoever we are, think God is leading us to for the next 2 years, and we would love your thoughts on that and how you can help. And then finally, review and repeat. So I would make sure that it was always on my PCC agenda, and once a year we would look at our Mission Action Plan and we say, where have we exceeded? Where have we fallen short? What do we need to do? We try to send these out every 2 years. The first time you do it will be quite a big job. Second, third, fourth times, it's really a case of, well, this is where we were last time. How have we moved on, or even backwards? Are there other things that we need to do and we need to adjust it? So I hope that's helpful. It is, I believe, a genuinely really useful tool. In my own church context, I've done it a number of times, and we saw some really big shifts happening in the church because of it. So please make use of it, and please do submit, because it's just helpful for us to know how we can help you. And I'm going to pass over to Marie now, who's going to talk about how that specifically worked in Wentworth.
Thank you. Have we got us? Oh, brilliant. So it's lovely to see you all and talk a little bit about how we've been approaching mission action planning in my parish of Wentworth and Harley. Some of you, I know our parish well, but if you don't know where we are 2 villages 5 miles north of Rotherham. And Wentworth in particular is very historic and very beautiful. The village is still owned by the Fitzwilliam Estate Trust, and nearly all the houses are rented from the estate. We're surrounded by ex-mining villages, but immediately we're surrounded by farms and countryside. We've got a fabulous garden centre, which I know many of you are fans of. We've got 2 great pubs and the spectacular Wentworth Woodhouse in the village. And we had the RHS flower show there in July, which was fab, if a bit of a challenge for the traffic. So if you haven't visited, I really recommend that you do. But I'm not just telling you all this to promote tourism, because that's quite healthy. My point is that although we are a small village, there are lots of visitors, which of course gives us opportunities. So can I have the next slide, please? So this is where we are. Wentworth Church, Holy Trinity, is also beautiful, and it is a popular venue for weddings. We've had 18 weddings this year. We keep the church open every day during daylight hours, and we get lots of people dropping in. People who are walking their dogs quite often, or just having a walk around the village. In fact, several thousand people drop in each year. We did use a people counter, which I'm not sure the figures are right. It said 19,000. I think that's a bit high. But I think it's certainly 5,000 or more people. Some come in just to look at the building because it's fantastic. But many, we find, drop in for quiet reflection and prayer. So the worship at Wentworth is very traditional. We have BCP services 3 out of 4 Sundays. And for the moment at least, that's how the PCC want to keep it. Some people from outside the area come to us specifically because they want a more traditional service. Some come because they find the building inspires them to worship. And some come because it's actually a lovely and welcoming congregation. We get about 60 people on a Sunday morning, and this includes wedding couples because most of them have to attend for 6 months in order to get their qualifying connection to marry here. In addition, we have an informal Tuesday morning service where we regularly get about 20 people, and for the most part these are different people to Sundays. And at Harley, we have a small congregation of about 8 who meet in a modern building twice a month for a common worship communion service. So that's just all to give you a little bit of context. So I started as priest in charge in May 2023, and the churches hadn't had a permanent vicar for over 13 years. They had various house for duty, part-time people, but for a long time there'd been nobody. And the members of the congregation had done a brilliant job of keeping things running. Things like organising cover for services, of weddings, looking after the building, fundraising activities like concerts, and a brilliant summer garden party. People had worked really hard, but they were willing to admit that they lacked any sense of direction and mission. There was no outreach and no ministry with children and families. But the PCC were up for change, they just didn't know how. So when I discovered that there was the MAP process and the Lights for Christ programme, that was brilliant because it gave me some tools to start introducing the changes that we needed. So can I have the next slide? Thank you. So in September 2023, after being there a few months, I invited Toby to lead an away day which involved the PCC plus other people from both congregations who were clearly showing a level of commitment. And I think there were about 20 people there, and we spent time thinking about what we thought the church was for and what we wanted to see happening in our churches in the future. And we generated a lot of post-it notes. And then next slide, please. As a follow-up, the PCC agreed that we would have a mission action planning team. So 6 church members met together with myself and a facilitator who just so happened to be my husband, Julian. And it was useful to bring him in because he was able to be more objective than me and just sort of, and he's got those sorts of skills, but also the congregation did know him, which was helpful. And over a couple of evenings, we worked through the MAP booklet and the post-its, and we identified our 3 priority areas and set ourselves some goals. Now, it was hard to choose because, you look at it and you think, we're not doing any of this, and really we need to improve on them all. But we knew we needed to focus our resources because we'd not got that many people helping. So the 3 we decided were most important are on the next slide, thanks. And they are vision, purpose, and oversight ministry. And we felt we needed to have a clearly articulated vision by the following October 24. And also to explore how we could build a culture that facilitates and supports leadership. Can you next one? Oh, sorry. Also to engage with Lights for Christ and to do a sermon series promoting the rule of life. Sorry, we've got a little bit muddled there with the slides, haven't we? So the priorities were vision, purpose and oversight ministry, discipleship and Lights for Christ, and resourcing disciples, because there were very low levels of engagement with the Bible, and engaging in Lights for Christ was going to help us with that. And then growth and evangelism, doing some form of missional outreach and creating a collaboration within the community, and to have at least one enquirer's course a year. Sorry for the muddle there. So we were able to work on some of those straight away. We ran the start course, and then we invited some of the keener wedding couples, which resulted in 2 confirmations at Easter last year, which was great. And we invited Hannah Sandoval to speak, and then we did a sermon series on Lights for Christ and the rule of life. We also introduced this time tomorrow slots, though to be honest, I have found it difficult to get people to do that. But the big piece of work we needed to do was to develop a vision. So the MAP team became the vision team. And we met once a month over a period of 5 months, still being facilitated. We prayed together and we worked through a series of questions. And I was really delighted with the depth with which the members engaged with the questions. I guess I was a bit worried that they'd just say yes to whatever I thought, but they didn't. They challenged, and we really grappled with the questions. So I'm going to outline the process that we went through, which was helpful for us. And I do have handouts, a couple of handouts if you're interested, but if there are more people wanting them, I can email them to you. So first, next slide, please. Yeah, great. So we started off by thinking about our identity, who we are, and it was just helpful thinking with Bishop Pete this morning about who we're called to be again. But we agreed that we are a diverse community called by and united in Jesus Christ, the light of the world. Now, we're not the most ethnically diverse community up in Wentworth, but we are diverse in many other ways. And so we were happy with that. And the important thing was that we are called and united in Jesus, the light of the world. And then, next slide, thanks. We thought about our mission. And that was quite easy because it flowed out of our identity. Our mission is to shine as lights for Christ. Then, next, thanks. Then we thought about our values, and I'm not going to read all these out because there are a lot of them, but these were the principles that guide how we do things. And we came up with this long list. It's probably a bit too long, but you know, the Bible, prayer, right relationships, evangelism, integrity, etc. As I say, if you want to look at them, you can have a copy of the handout. Thank you. And then next, thanks. Then we finally, after about 3 sessions, got onto our vision. And where we feel we are called to go. And what we agreed our vision was to be a church at the heart of our community, living in Christ, growing in faith, and transforming in love. Now, transforming in love was the most difficult to put into words. We struggled a bit with that, and it's still not quite perfect, I don't think. But hopefully it carries the idea that we're making a difference in our community and the lives of others. But we're also being transformed. We're also learning. God is doing things in us. We are not sort of the experts going out there, but we are being transformed ourselves. So that's our vision statement. That is where we want to go. And we achieve our vision through our mission of being lights for Christ. But we also need to have some practical aims and some measurable goals or objectives. So here they are, 3 key aims. First, to build a culture where church members see themselves as disciples of Jesus or lights for Christ, not just churchgoers or Anglicans. To identify, develop and empower leaders, and to become strategically involved in the life of our community. I should add that as we were going through this process, we gave regular feedback to a church council, and they were invited at each stage to comment on the work we'd done. But then in October last year, we had another away day, and we agreed the vision and then some supporting objectives for these aims. And these are on the next slides. The first was around building a discipleship culture, and we set smart targets as well for all of these, so to giving ourselves a time scale, ensuring that they were relevant and measurable, etc. So sermons that call people to discipleship, 2 or 3 courses a year nurturing discipleship, church members encouraged to talk about their faith, and worship that is seeking to be an encounter with God. Next one was on empowering leaders. So to identify the leadership we need, to identify talents within the congregation, and to encourage people to take risks. They were our objectives around leadership. And then to engage with the community. So one of the things we discovered, when people come into church, we put these explore prayer cards, maybe you have them. And the ones that get taken most are the ones about grieving, prayers for those who are grieving, and they were just being gobbled up. So what we realised was that a lot of the people were dropping into church were actually coming because they were experiencing bereavement, and they were just coming for a place where they could find comfort. So we decided our priority in terms of reaching in the community was to set up a bereavement cafe, but we'd do it in partnership with one of the local tea rooms, because we've got several of those. Also, to explore how we might collaborate with the local community more broadly, to conduct any church activity that we could within the community, and to grow a new congregation. So those were the goals we set ourselves for 3 years, really. And over the last year, these have been guiding our work. And the goals that we originally set as part of the Mission Action Plan have been taken forward within these objectives. We put them in our annual report, and they're on every PCC agenda. And the first thing we'll do at the meeting is to look at how we're performing against our objectives and any progress we've made. I also did a sermon to launch this when we finally agreed the action plan, and regularly mention it in the notice sheet. And we're kind of just about a year since we agreed it, and in this first year I would say things have gone well, generally. In terms of discipleship, we've run the Bible course, we've run the Pilgrim course on the 10 Commandments, which is very good, and we've had about 18 people on each, some of them new people. We're planning to do the Bible Society's Romans course in November. We've currently got 10 people on start courses. We're running 2 groups, and 5 of them are interested in being confirmed at the end of November. We also had 3 confirmations and an adult baptism at Easter. In terms of community, our new congregation we have set up, it's a monthly messy church at Harley. It was the obvious place to do it, as the building there is far more suitable than Wentworth, plus more families live in Harley than there's very few families in Wentworth. We successfully applied for a small Spark grant from the diocese to help us with this, and our church school has been very supportive in promoting Messy Church. And we had 18 children there last week, which was the highest number we've had so far. I mean, some people don't come every time, but there are a core of maybe about 6 families who we're seeing are there very regularly now, which is great. We've also set up what we call the Tea and Toast Club, and this is a monthly group for friendship and support for those who've been bereaved. They meet in the local tea room once a month, which makes it easier for people who might happen to be in the tea room to join in. And one of our confirmation candidates for November, Val, has come to us through this group, and she's in her 80s, but she's discovered faith, which is fantastic. And we are holding our discipleship courses in our local community hall, which is nicer than having it in church. We don't have a church hall. And so we use the community hall. We publicise things in the community. So far, nobody's dropped in and been part of it from the community, but they know that it's happening. They know that there's a Bible course happening in the village hall, which is great. Can I have another slide, please? Yeah, just this last one. This is our entrance, so we have a sign and a bowl of water for dogs, because we're trying to provide a place of welcome and prayer that is open for the community all the time. We have dog biscuits inside if you come in the entrance, free gospels and prayer cards and a prayer tree so that people can engage in prayer when they come in. If they happen to turn up on a Tuesday, then they are invited to stay for the service, and we have fantastic refreshments afterwards. So people often come in and they're walking the dog, they see the sign, they pop in and, maybe they stay for the sandwich and say, oh, why don't you come to the service next week? 3 of our confirmation candidates for November are people who just popped in for a look and decided to stay on a Tuesday. The area where it's been hardest for us to make progress is leadership. We don't have any focal ministers, though in the last year or so we've been joined by Keith and Janet Hale. Keith was he's fairly recently retired as vicar of Tankersley, and Janet, his wife, is a reader and very experienced at leading Messy Church. So that was a complete gift to us, and Janet now is heading up our Messy Church. But we need to grow some leaders from within the congregation. And I'm sure many of you would say the same, but I find that people are willing to help. They'll volunteer on a work party, but not take on a regular commitment or responsibility. So what we're going to do is we're going to have our 3rd PCC away day next month, and Beth Burris is going to come and lead us on the theme of leadership development. And as well as PCC members, we'll be inviting some of the newer church members who've showed some leadership potential. There's loads more that we could do. Sorry, I've raced through it a bit. And I would love us to do, looking at the booklet again, even this week, I thought, oh gosh, I wish we could do more stuff on social transformation. I'd love us to get involved with Eco Church if there was someone who would take it on. And we need to go deeper in prayer and make our worship more accessible. But I am encouraged by the progress that we have made. We have grown in numbers, and our congregation is noticeably younger than it was. And that's not just through wedding couples. There's a very hopeful and positive spirit and a sense of excitement, I think, about what God is doing. Yesterday morning, we had a work party and clearing out the cellar, which wasn't a particularly nice job, but quite a few younger men who some of them only very occasionally attend services, came along to help, which was brilliant, and the job was done in 1 day, not 2 as we'd expected. But what encouraged me as much as getting the job work done was that the person who organised it said to me, it really feels as though God is with us in this task. And she would never have spoken like that a year ago. It wasn't part of her vocabulary, but she's changed because she's seeing God doing things in our midst. So for us, the MAP process has provided a really valuable tool to get us doing things that, after all, is what the church is here for. And I want to say that I really appreciate the support that we've been given by various members of the RMM team, Toby's team, as well as the finance and the buildings team. They've also given us a lot of support on other things that I've not even mentioned here. So, I would encourage you to, if you haven't done it, to draw on their support, because I think ultimately it's a brilliant tool. So that's about everything. I think we're quite close to time, aren't we? But if there are any questions, or questions to Toby equally, because are there any questions or comments that would be helpful? No?
Yeah, what did the PCC away day include? What were the items on that?
The one that Toby did? Yeah. Do you remember it?
Can I remember it? That's a good question. Typically, when I do a PCC away day with a church, we're working at basics of what is your vision? Who are you? So we would ask people to to almost to start thinking freely about, well, what's the purpose of us here? Why are we here? What would our community lose if overnight our church disappeared? We would then ask people to, with as many post-it notes as possible, to think, what are the things we really want? What are on our heart? There's no limits. You can write everything down, and we slap a whole load of post-it notes up, and then we start grouping them together and start noticing a pattern. People will use different language, but it might be all very obvious that they're focusing on youth and children or connecting with the vulnerable. And then what we try to do is hone it in to priorities or to a vision statement or something where everyone there can say, yeah, that has distilled what we have been doing on this day. And then when you've got that, you can then start looking at the mission action plan saying, well, bear in mind what we thought were our key vision and priorities that we've got on that day. How does that translate into the map? But it is slightly different depending on what the needs of the church that we do them for. Anyone else? Great, well, we have finished almost bang on time, and there's food out there, so do go and enjoy your lunch. And thank you, Marie, because that was just inspiring.